Hey, thanks for being here. Before we dive into this, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, drop a like if this gets under your skin, and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what you're doing right now. Listening while driving? Working late? I want to know. All right, let's get into it. Here's what you need to know up front. I conducted an interview that should never have happened. Not with a cult leader, not with a criminal, with something that claimed to be the prince of demons. And what it told me, it'll change how you see every decision you've ever made, every person you've ever trusted. Stay with me. You'll want to hear how this ends. I'm going to tell you about the worst mistake of my career, maybe my life. I'm Jake Brennan, investigative journalist out of Chicago, and for the last 8 years, I've made my name covering fringe religious movements, underground cults, extremist groups operating in plain sight. I've sat across from people who believed they were prophets, people who'd committed unthinkable acts in the name of faith, people who looked me in the eye and smiled while describing atrocities. I thought I'd seen the depths of human delusion. I was wrong. It started 3 months ago, November 14th, 2024. I was working late at my apartment in Wicker Park, going through emails, most of them the usual garbage. Conspiracy theorists wanting me to expose chemtrails, people convinced their neighbors were lizard people, the typical noise that comes with my beat. I was about to close my laptop when a new message appeared. No subject line. Sender, anonymous, remailer, 041.darkweb.net. The message was brief. You've spent years interviewing people who claim to speak for us. Would you like to interview the source directly? I promise you, this will be the story that defines your career. Or ends it. Detroit. Old Packard plant. Southeast corner, 3rd floor. December 3rd. Midnight. Come alone. Bring your questions. I'll bring the answers you've been seeking your entire life. Below that, GPS coordinates. I should have deleted it immediately. Should have reported it to the FBI, laughed it off, done literally anything except what I did. But here's the thing about my line of work. You develop an instinct for bullshit. You can smell a hoax, feel when someone's playing games. This email didn't feel like a hoax. It felt like an invitation. I sat there staring at my screen for 20 minutes, my coffee growing cold beside me. The radiator in my apartment clanked and hissed, pumping out heat that suddenly felt suffocating. Outside, sirens wailed down Milwaukee Avenue. Normal sounds. Normal night. But something had shifted. I opened a new browser tab and pulled up the coordinates. The Packard plant. Of course. 3.5 million square feet of rotting industrial corpse. Detroit's most famous ruin. Abandoned since 1958, it had become a magnet for urban explorers, graffiti artists, scrappers, and people looking to disappear. The city had tried for decades to demolish it, but it kept standing, defiant, a monument to American decay. Perfect place for an ambush. Perfect place to die. I called my editor, Tom Westbrook, around 11 that night. He picked up on the 4th ring, voice thick with sleep. This better be good, Brennan. I got an interesting message, anonymous source. Wants to meet. Yeah? About what? I hesitated. Claims to be not human. Silence on the other end. Then, you're joking. I'm not. Look, I know how it sounds. It sounds like you're about to get your kidneys harvested in an abandoned building. That's how it sounds. Tom's voice had gone sharp. The sleep burned off. What's the meet location? Detroit. Packard plant. Jesus Christ, Jake. That's a murder scene waiting to happen. Tell me you're not seriously considering this. I looked at my reflection in my apartment window, Chicago's lights stretching out behind me like circuit boards. I've done riskier meets. Name one. That militia compound in Idaho. You had police back up half a mile away. They didn't know that. Tom sighed, and I heard him moving around, probably getting out of bed. What's your angle here? What makes you think this is legitimate? That was the question, wasn't it? I stared at the email again, reading it for the 50th time. Gut feeling. Something about the tone. It's not trying to convince me of anything. It's not threatening, it's just offering. Offering what? Enlightenment? A one-way ticket to a missing persons case? Information, access, the source itself, not another interpreter, not another middleman claiming divine revelation. If this is real, if it's real, you're walking into something you can't walk out of. Tom's voice had dropped lower. I've known you 7 years, Jake. You're smart, you're careful, but you've got this thing where you think you can talk your way out of anything. This sounds like the situation where that stops working. He was right, of course. But I could already feel the pull, that familiar hunger that had driven my career from the start. The need to know, the need to be the one who looked behind the curtain. I'm going to do it, I said. Another long silence. Fine. But you're taking precautions. Share your location with me continuously. Check in every hour. And for God's sake, tell someone else too. Your girlfriend, your mother, I don't care. Someone needs to know where you are. Amanda's at a conference in Boston until the 5th. Then call your mother. My mother thinks I work in advertising. Jake, I'll handle it. I'll take precautions, but I'm going. We talked for another 20 minutes, Tom trying different angles to dissuade me deflecting each one. Finally, he gave up with a resigned curse and made me promise to call him the moment I left the plant, alive or not. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing. I researched the Packard plant exhaustively, studied floor plans from when it was operational, looked at recent urban exploration photos and videos. The building was a labyrinth, structurally unsound, filled with holes that dropped 3 stories down to concrete floors. People had died there, multiple people. I bought a new phone with an extended battery, downloaded offline maps of Detroit, purchased a high-powered flashlight and a backup. I didn't bring a weapon. I'd learned early in my career that carrying a gun made people more likely to shoot you, not less. Besides, if this was what it claimed to be, a Glock wouldn't help me. The night of December the 2nd, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed watching Amanda's empty side, thinking about how I'd lied to her about where I was going. Told her it was a routine interview with a former cult member in Milwaukee. She'd kissed me goodbye that morning before leaving for Logan, told me to be safe, said she loved me. I'd said it back, meant it, and still lied. Around 10 p.m. on the 3rd, I got in my car and started the drive. Chicago to Detroit. 4 hours straight through on I-94. The highway was mostly empty, just semis hauling loads through the night and the occasional car with someone heading somewhere they probably shouldn't be. I drove in silence. No radio, no podcasts, just the hum of tires on asphalt and my own thoughts spiraling. What was I actually doing? What did I expect to find? Some guy in a demon costume trying to start a cult? An elaborate prank by a rival journalist? Something worse? I crossed into Michigan around 1:45 a.m. The landscape flattened, darkness pressing in from all sides. I passed through Toledo, then into the Detroit suburbs, watching the highway signs count down the miles. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel. At 11:30, I parked 6 blocks away from the Packard plant, on a residential street where most houses were dark or abandoned. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, checking my gear, sending my location to Tom with a message. Going in. If you don't hear from me by 2 a.m., call the police. His response came immediately. This is insane. Be careful. I got out of the car. December in Detroit was brutal, wind cutting through my jacket like it wanted to find bone. The street was silent except for a dog barking somewhere blocks away and the distant sound of a car alarm. I started walking. The Packard plant loomed ahead, a massive shadow against the night sky. Even from a distance, you could feel its wrongness, not just abandoned, but malignant, like the building itself had developed consciousness through decades of decay and resented still standing. Graffiti covered every visible surface, tags and murals and obscenities layered so thick they formed their own architecture. I reached the perimeter fence, cut open in multiple places as expected. I slipped through, my flashlight illuminating dead grass and scattered debris. Old tires, broken glass, syringes glinting in the beam. I stepped carefully, aware that every shadow could hide someone, something. The southeast entrance was exactly where the coordinates indicated. A gaping doorway, darkness beyond so complete my flashlight barely penetrated. I stopped at the threshold, suddenly very aware of my heartbeat, my breath forming clouds in the freezing air. This was it. Last chance to turn back. I stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Mildew, rust, decay, and something else underneath. Something organic and wrong. Rotting animals maybe, or worse. The floor was covered in debris, chunks of concrete, metal rebar, things I couldn't identify and didn't want to. My flashlight beam swept across walls covered in graffiti, across empty doorways leading to darker rooms, across stairs that climbed into shadows. 3rd floor, southeast corner. I found the stairs and started climbing, testing each step before putting my weight on it. The metal groaned under me, rust flaking off and tinkling down into the darkness below. My breath sounded too loud in my ears. I counted steps, focused on that, tried not to think about how isolated I was, how far from help. 2nd floor landing. The graffiti here was different, older, faded. Less art, more warnings. Turn back. The eyes are watching. Don't sleep here. The usual urban legend stuff. But in this context, in this darkness, it felt less like teenage rebellion and more like genuine advice. I kept climbing. 3rd floor. The stairs ended at a hallway that stretched in both directions, holes in the floor showing drops to lower levels, holes in the ceiling showing the night sky. My flashlight caught movement. Rats, dozens of them, scattering from the light. The sound of their claws on concrete echoed weirdly, bouncing off walls and coming back distorted. Southeast corner. I checked my compass app, oriented myself, started walking. My footsteps crunched on broken glass and I thought absurdly about how I should have worn better boots. Amanda had wanted me to buy new ones last month. Why was I thinking about that now? Because fear makes your mind do strange things, latches onto irrelevant details to avoid facing what's ahead. I reached a large open room, probably an old assembly area. The ceiling had mostly collapsed, letting in moonlight that painted everything silver and black. And there in the center of the room, standing beside a section of floor that was somehow still intact, was a figure. Not moving, just standing, waiting. I stopped in the doorway, my flashlight beam finding him. He was dressed in a dark suit, perfectly tailored, completely incongruous with the surroundings. His face was ordinary, mid-40s maybe, clean-shaven, dark hair graying at the temples. He could have been a lawyer, a banker, a professor, someone you'd pass on the street without a second glance. He smiled. "Jake Brennan, thank you for coming. I wasn't entirely certain you would." His voice was normal too, Midwestern accent, pleasant tone, the kind of voice you'd trust to explain your mortgage or sell you insurance. I'd expected something else, something theatrical. This was somehow worse. "You're the one who sent the email," I said. Not a question. "I am. Please come in. I promise you're safe. For tonight, at least." He gestured to a space across from him. "This is, after all, an interview. Professional courtesy applies." I walked forward slowly, every instinct screaming at me to run. I stopped about 10 feet away from him, close enough to talk, far enough to hopefully react if this went sideways. Up close, I could see his eyes. Brown, completely normal, human eyes. "What do I call you?" I asked. "What would you like to call me?" He tilted his head slightly. "I've had many names. Lucifer, Satan, Beelzebub, the Morning Star, the Adversary, the Prince of Darkness, the Lightbringer. Humanity has been very creative. But names are just, marketing. You can call me whatever makes you comfortable. I'll stick with you for now." Pragmatic. I appreciate that. He clasped his hands behind his back, casual, relaxed. "You're wondering if this is real, if I'm real. If you're experiencing some kind of psychotic break or if someone dosed your coffee this morning. These are reasonable questions. Are you going to answer them? I'm going to give you proof, but not the kind you're expecting." He took a step closer and I tensed. He stopped immediately, holding up one hand. Relax. I'm not going to hurt you. That would defeat the purpose. I didn't arrange this meeting to harm you, Jake. I arranged it to talk, to be heard, to be understood. For once. Why? The question came out sharper than I intended. Why would, if you're what you claim to be, why would you want to talk to a journalist? Why me? His smile widened. Because you've built a career talking to people who claim to speak for me. All those cult leaders, those prophets, those self-proclaimed messengers of darkness. You've documented their delusions, their interpretations, their pathetic attempts to channel something they can't even begin to comprehend. And it's frustrating. Frustrating. Imagine someone spending decades writing biographies about you, but they've never actually met you. Everything they write is based on rumors, misunderstandings, centuries-old propaganda, and the ramblings of the mentally unstable. Wouldn't you want to set the record straight? I pulled out my phone, held it up. Mind if I record this? You can try. I hit record. The phone immediately died. Battery at 0 despite being fully charged 30 minutes ago. I tried to restart it. Nothing. I looked up at him. He shrugged. Technology and I don't get along. It's not personal. You'll have to rely on memory. But then, that's more authentic anyway, isn't it? More human. I put the dead phone away, my mouth suddenly dry. You said you'd give me proof. I will. Tell me about February 17th, 2019. The date meant nothing to me. You were in your car, red light at the intersection of Clark and Diversey. You were thinking about running the light. You were late for a meeting with a source, a former member of that doomsday group in Evanston. You had your foot on the gas ready to punch through, but you didn't. You waited. Do you remember why? The memory surfaced, hazy but real. There was a kid, on a bike. I saw him coming from the corner. You saw him because I made you look. His expression didn't change. If you'd run that light, you would have hit him, killed him instantly. Your life would have ended that day too. Not physically, but everything that matters would have been over. Career, relationship, freedom, all gone. I saved you from that. Why would you? Because I needed you for this, for tonight. I've been guiding you here for 5 years, Jake. Every interview you've done, every story you've written, every choice that's led you to this moment. You thought it was your ambition, your curiosity, your talent, and it was. But I gave those qualities a little direction. I felt my stomach tighten. That's impossible. Is it? Tell me something only you would know. Something you've never told anyone. Your deepest secret. I didn't want to play this game, but I also needed to know. I cheated on my SATs, senior year, paid someone to take them for me. Got into Northwestern because of it. You paid Wesley Monroe $3,000 that your grandfather left you when he died. You've never told anyone, not even Amanda, and you think about it every time someone compliments your writing. You wonder if you deserve any of it. If you're a fraud. He paused. But here's something you don't know. Wesley Monroe died 6 years ago. Car accident in Phoenix. He was drunk. And before he got behind that wheel, he thought about calling a cab. Thought about it for almost a minute. But then he remembered he needed to save money, had bills to pay. That thought, that specific justification, came from us, from my people. We whispered it into the part of his brain that processes risk and reward. He made the choice. But we made it easier. You're saying you killed him. I'm saying we created the conditions where he killed himself. There's a difference. Free will, Jake. It's real. We don't take it away. We just contextualize it, make certain options more appealing. Quiet the voice that says don't. Amplify the voice that says why not. The temperature in the room felt like it had dropped 10 degrees. I could see my breath now, thick clouds in the moonlight. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm tired of being misunderstood. Tired of being portrayed as this cosmic supervillain with horns and a pitchfork, corrupting innocent souls with magic and possession. That's not how any of this works. It's never been how it works. The truth is much simpler, and much worse. He started walking around the room, hands still clasped behind his back, like a professor giving a lecture. Do you know what hell actually is? Not the fire and brimstone, not the torture chambers. Hell is earth, right here, right now. It always has been. Every demon you've ever heard about in your ridiculous mythology, we're here, all of us, living among you, working beside you, sitting next to you on the train. We don't hide in the shadows. We walk in broad daylight. I don't believe you. Of course you don't. That's the beauty of it. We look just like you. We sound like you. We laugh at the same jokes, enjoy the same pleasures. The only difference is what we do with our time, our purpose. He stopped, turned to face me directly. We whisper suggestions. That's all. Just small, almost imperceptible nudges, a thought here, an impulse there. We make the bad choice feel like the right one. We make the destructive decision feel justified. And people just listen? Not consciously, but yes. Do you think every terrible thing humanity does is purely human? Every war, every betrayal, every murder. You give yourselves too much credit. We've been here since the beginning, Jake. Since your species first figured out how to sharpen a rock and bash in your neighbor's skull. We didn't invent violence. We just encouraged it. My legs felt weak. I wanted to sit down, but there was nowhere safe to sit. This is insane. Is it? Think about the last truly awful decision you made, the one that still keeps you up at night. Can you remember the exact moment you decided to do it? Can you trace the logic? Or did it just feel right at the time, like something you had to do? I thought about Amanda, about the time I'd almost kissed one of her colleagues at a party, 2 years ago. I'd been drunk, angry about something stupid, and this woman had been kind, attentive. I'd leaned in, gotten within inches, and then pulled back. I'd never told Amanda, never told anyone. You're wondering if that was us, he said, reading my expression. It was. One of my people spent 3 hours at that party making sure every circumstance aligned perfectly. Made sure your drink was never empty. Made sure that woman kept touching your arm. Made sure Amanda was occupied across the room. You almost did it. Almost destroyed your relationship over nothing. But you didn't. You chose not to. Then you failed. Did we? His smile turned colder. You've been carrying that guilt for 2 years. It's changed how you interact with Amanda. Made you more suspicious, more distant. You think she doesn't notice, but she does. She thinks you're pulling away. She's starting to wonder if you're having an affair. That thought, that doubt, it's eating at your relationship from the inside. You didn't have to kiss that woman for us to win. We won the moment you considered it. I felt like I was going to be sick. Why are you telling me all this? What do you want? I want people to understand. I want the truth to be told, for once. Not the sanitized version in your holy books. Not the cartoonish evil in your horror movies, the real truth. We're not monsters from another dimension. We're just beings who made different choices. And now we're here, doing our job. The job we were essentially designed to do. Designed? By whom do you think? He looked up at the holes in the ceiling, at the night sky beyond. You want to know about the other side? About the ones who supposedly oppose us? Fine. Let's talk about angels. The way he said it, casual, almost dismissive, made my chest tighten. Like he was about to share gossip about coworkers, rather than reveal cosmic truths about the nature of good and evil. Angels, I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. You're saying they're real too. Of course they're real. Did you think we were the only ones? That the universe was just us and you, locked in this intimate little dance? He laughed, a sound that was disturbingly human. No, they exist. They watch. They observe. They take notes, probably. But they don't interfere. Not anymore. Not for a very, very long time. Why not? Because that's not their job. Their job is to wait, to see which of you are strong enough, disciplined enough, worthy enough to resist us, to make the right choices when every fiber of your being is screaming at you to make the wrong ones. He moved closer, and I could smell his cologne now, something expensive, cedar and leather. This world, it's a testing ground, a cosmic sorting mechanism. You live, you face temptation, you make choices. And at the end, the ones who consistently chose correctly, who fought against their worst impulses, who resisted our whispers, they get to go up. The rest, well, they stay here. Or they come down further. I tried to process this. So angels just watch people suffer? Watch people make terrible decisions and destroy their lives and do nothing? They don't see it as suffering. They see it as opportunity. Each temptation is a chance to prove yourself. Each terrible impulse you resist is a point in your favor. It's actually quite elegant from their perspective. No miracles needed. No divine intervention. Just pure individual willpower. He spread his hands. Of course, from your perspective, it probably feels a bit unfair. You're down here with us, with beings who have spent millennia perfecting the art of psychological manipulation, and your only defense is your own moral compass. Which, let's be honest, most of you barely have. That's monstrous. Is it? You believe in free will, don't you? In the fundamental human right to make your own choices? Well, that's what you have. Pure, unadulterated free will. We don't take it away. We don't force anything. We just make suggestions. The final decision is always, always yours. He paused. The angels would argue that any system that removes choice, that saves you from yourselves through divine intervention, would invalidate the entire test. You have to choose good, have to choose resistance, otherwise it doesn't count. So they're just going to let the world burn? The world isn't burning. It's functioning exactly as designed. Some people pass the test, some don't. The system works. He walked to the edge of the room, looking out through a collapsed section of wall at Detroit's skyline. You want to know the really funny part? The humans who do the most damage, the ones who start wars, who build empires on suffering, who destroy millions of lives, most of them think they're doing good. We don't have to convince them they're evil. We just have to convince them their evil is necessary, justified, even righteous. I thought about history, about leaders who'd committed atrocities in the name of peace, progress, security. You're saying every dictator, every tyrant, had one of us whispering in their ear, not literally, not like a voice in their head, but yes, every major human atrocity has our fingerprints on it. Not because we forced anyone to do anything, but because we made it easier to choose the path that led there. We amplified their fear, justified their anger, provided the rationalizations that let them sleep at night. He turned back to me. Some of the worst figures in human history believed they were saving their nations. Others were convinced they were building paradise. A few genuinely thought they were creating utopias. We didn't plant those beliefs. We just nurtured them, removed the doubts, silenced the conscience. We don't exactly do census reports, but there are enough of us to ensure that every human being on this planet encounters our influence regularly. Multiple times a day, actually. You just don't notice. It feels like your own thoughts. Give me an example. Something specific. He considered this. 2 weeks ago. You were working on that article about the evangelical group in Tennessee. You had a deadline. Your editor wanted 1,500 words. You'd written 1,200, and you were stuck. Around 2 a.m., you thought about fabricating a quote. Just one quote from a source who'd refused to comment. You had notes from other conversations with them. You knew what they would have said. It would have been easy. No one would have known. You were exhausted, frustrated, and you needed to file. I remembered that night. Remembered sitting at my desk, staring at that paragraph, cursor blinking. I had thought about it for maybe 30 seconds. Then I'd called another source instead, gotten a different angle, finished the piece honestly. That was you? One of my associates, mid-level tempter, works primarily with creative professionals. She's very good at deadline pressure. specializes in making people compromise their ethics in small ways. Because that's how it works, Jake. We don't ask you to commit murder right away. We start with small lies, tiny betrayals, little moments where you choose convenience over integrity. Each one makes the next one easier. That's the path. Death by 1,000 cuts to your moral center. But I didn't do it. No, you didn't. You passed that particular test. Congratulations. You've probably passed dozens of them, maybe hundreds. But you've also failed plenty. Everyone does. The question isn't whether you fail, it's whether you fail enough to tip the balance. Whether the weight of your bad choices eventually outweighs the good ones. And then what? We die and go to hell? Hell isn't a place you go to. Hell is what you become. It's the accumulation of every selfish choice, every moment of cruelty, every time you chose your own comfort over someone else's well-being. You build it inside yourself. And when you die, that's all that's left. You don't get sent to a torture chamber. You become one. For yourself and everyone around you. He smiled again, that same pleasant expression. Although there are lower levels for those who really excel at causing suffering. Special accommodations, you might say. But most people don't qualify. Most people just exist in a state of diminishment. Forever hungry but never able to eat. Forever angry but never able to rest. It's quite efficient. The moonlight streaming through the collapsed ceiling had shifted, throwing strange shadows across the room. I became aware of how isolated we were, how far from help. If I screamed, no one would hear. If I ran, would I even make it to the stairs? You're wondering if I'm going to kill you now, he said. The answer is no. I told you, this is just a conversation, professional courtesy. You came here to interview me, and I agreed because I want my story told. My real story. Not the distorted version your religions have spread for thousands of years. Why? The question burst out of me. Why do you care what humans think about you? For the first time, something shifted in his expression, a crack in the pleasant mask. Because I'm tired of being the villain. I'm tired of being blamed for everything you do to yourselves. We offer suggestions. You act on them. But somehow it's always our fault. We're the evil ones. We're the corruption, as if humanity wouldn't be capable of atrocity without us. He stepped closer, and I forced myself not to step back. You want to know the truth? We're not the problem. We're the excuse. We're the reason you get to pretend that the darkness inside you isn't really yours. That it's some external force, some fallen angel whispering in your ear. It lets you off the hook. It lets you believe you're fundamentally good, just misled. And you're saying we're not? Fundamentally good? I'm saying you're fundamentally human, capable of extraordinary kindness and horrifying cruelty, often in the same day. We don't create that capacity. We just encourage one side over the other, the side that serves our purposes. He tilted his head. Do you know what our actual job is? Our function in this whole cosmic system? Temptation. Quality control. We're the filter. We apply pressure. We create circumstances where your true nature reveals itself. The ones who maintain their integrity under that pressure, who choose correctly even when it costs them, those are the ones who pass, who prove they're worthy of what comes next. The ones who cave, who give in to their worst impulses, who hurt others for personal gain, they fail. They stay in the cycle. Or they fall further. That's psychotic. That's selection. That's refinement. You don't make steel without heat and pressure. You don't create diamonds without intense force. Why would you expect the creation of worthy souls to be any different? He gestured around us. At the ruined factory. This building used to make cars. Thousands of people working together, transforming raw materials into something useful. It took labor. It took struggle. Nothing worth having comes easy. Why would salvation? Because people deserve mercy, deserve forgiveness. Mercy and forgiveness are available. You just have to choose them, have to genuinely change. But change is hard, Jake. Real change requires acknowledging that you were wrong. Requires giving up the things that make you feel good, the habits that define you, Most people would rather die than change, so they do, and they take their darkness with them. I felt dizzy. The cold was seeping into my bones, making it hard to think clearly. You said you've been guiding me for 5 years. Guiding me here. Why me specifically? Because you're perfect. He said it simply, matter-of-factly. You're intelligent enough to understand what I'm telling you. Skeptical enough that people will believe you struggled with it. Successful enough that people will pay attention when you write about this. And arrogant enough that you came here despite every warning sign screaming at you not to. The word stung. I'm not arrogant. You're a journalist who built a career interviewing extremists and cult leaders. You walk into dangerous situations regularly, convinced that your intellect and charm will protect you. You lie to the woman you claim to love because you don't want her interfering with your work. You think you're the protagonist of your own story, Jake. That everything will work out because you're you. That's textbook arrogance. It's also what makes you useful. Useful for what? For this. For spreading the message. I want people to know the truth. I want them to understand how this really works. Not because I'm suddenly developing a conscience, but because knowledge is power. And when people understand the game, they have a choice. They can play better, or they can give up entirely. Either way, it's more interesting than the current situation where everyone's stumbling around in the dark, blaming us for their own decisions. You want me to write about this, to publish this interview. I want you to try. I don't think you'll succeed. Most people will think you've lost your mind. Your editor will probably kill the story. Your colleagues will question your sanity. Amanda will leave you eventually, because this experience is going to change you in ways that make you impossible to live with. But you'll try anyway. Because you can't help yourself, you've been handed the story of the century. The story of all centuries. How could you not write it? He was right, and I hated that he was right. Even as every rational part of my brain screamed that this was insane, that I was talking to either a very disturbed person or having some kind of psychotic episode, another part was already thinking about structure, about how to present this, about the angle that would make it undeniable. You're doing it right now, he said, reading my face. Already thinking about how to frame the narrative, what details to include, how to make it compelling. That's what makes you good at what you do. It's also what makes you predictable. I could have chosen a dozen other journalists, but you were the most likely to actually go through with this, to show up, to stay, to listen. And if I don't write about it? Then you'll carry it inside you forever. Wonder if it was real. Question every decision you make from now on. Drive yourself slowly mad trying to determine which thoughts are yours and which are suggestions. You'll probably end up divorced, alcoholic, fired from your job. All because you couldn't stop thinking about this conversation. About me. He shrugged. Either way, I win. Either the message gets out, or you destroy yourself from the inside. Both outcomes serve my purposes. I wanted to hit him. Wanted to wipe that calm, pleasant expression off his face. But I knew it wouldn't matter. Violence wouldn't change anything. If this was real, if he was what he claimed, then attacking him would be pointless. And if he wasn't, if this was all some elaborate hoax, then I'd just be assaulting some guy in an abandoned building. Tell me about the mechanism, I said instead. How exactly do you influence people? What's the actual process? It's neurological. We can access the parts of your brain that process desire, fear, justification. We can't implant thoughts. That's not how brains work. But we can strengthen certain neural pathways. Make particular thoughts more appealing. Quiet the parts of your brain that would normally warn you something's a bad idea. It's like turning up the volume on your worst impulses while turning down the volume on your conscience. And people can't feel this happening. Can you feel your own neurons firing? Can you sense which neural pathways are activating when you make a decision? Of course not. It all just feels like thinking. Like you. That's the beauty of it. The influence is completely seamless. By the time you're aware of a thought, it already feels like yours. Because at that point, it is yours. We didn't create it, we just made it louder. More attractive. Harder to resist. What about medication? Therapy? Things that change brain chemistry? Those can help. make our job harder. Someone who's addressing their mental health, who's actively working to strengthen their decision-making processes. They're more resistant. Not immune, but more resistant. It's like trying to manipulate someone who's trained in recognizing manipulation. Possible, but it requires more effort, more subtlety. He paused. Of course, we can also influence whether someone seeks help in the first place. Make them think they don't need it, that asking for help is weakness, that they can handle everything on their own. Pride is one of our most useful tools. I thought about all the times I'd refused therapy, convinced I could work through my issues myself, about how I'd pressured Amanda to stop seeing her counselor last year, telling her it was a waste of money. Had that been my genuine opinion? Or had it been, "Stop," he said. "You're spiraling. That's not productive." The point isn't to question every thought you've ever had. The point is to be aware, to recognize that influence exists, to develop the ability to pause before acting on impulse, to strengthen the gap between desire and action. You're giving me advice on how to resist you? I'm giving you information. What you do with it is up to you. That's the whole point of free will. I can tell you exactly how this works, and you'll still make bad decisions. Because knowing isn't the same as doing. Awareness isn't the same as control. A sound echoed from somewhere below us. Footsteps maybe, or falling debris. I tensed, looking toward the doorway. When I looked back, he hadn't moved, but something about his posture had changed. More alert. "We're not alone anymore," he said quietly. "Someone else is in the building." Who? Probably just urban explorers, teenagers looking for a thrill, or someone looking for scrap metal to sell. This place attracts all kinds. He checked his watch, an actual watch, I noticed, not a phone. We have maybe 10 more minutes before they reach this floor. Use them wisely. My heart was racing again. What happens if they see us? They'll see a man in a suit talking to a nervous journalist in an abandoned factory at midnight. They'll probably take pictures, post them online. You'll be mildly embarrassed, that's all. He smiled. Unless you're asking if I'll hurt them. I won't. Like I said, that's not my job. My job is to whisper, to suggest. If they encounter violence tonight, it'll be because they chose to engage in it, or because someone else did. Someone else who you influenced. Perhaps. Or perhaps they're just violent people who would have done violent things regardless. Not everything is our fault, Jake. Humans are perfectly capable of horror all on their own. We just make it easier, more frequent, more extreme. The footsteps were getting closer. I could hear voices now, young voices laughing about something. Kids, probably. Out here where they shouldn't be, doing things their parents would lose their minds over. I thought about warning them, telling them to leave. But what would I say? Don't come up here, I'm interviewing the devil? Last questions, he said. Make them count. I had 1,000 questions, 1,000,000. But with limited time, I had to choose carefully. Can you prove this? Beyond the personal details you know about me. Can you prove you're what you claim to be? I can make predictions. 3 of them. Specific events that will happen in your life over the next 2 weeks. Things you couldn't possibly arrange yourself. When they come true, you'll have your proof. When they come true, you'll know this conversation was real. You'll know I'm real. And you'll have to decide what to do with that knowledge. What are the predictions? He held up one finger. In 4 days, you'll receive a job offer. A significant one, career-defining. They'll want you to move to New York, take over as editor of a major publication. The kind of offer you've dreamed about since journalism school. Everything you've worked toward. Second finger. In 9 days, you'll discover that Amanda has been having an emotional affair with a colleague. Not physical, not yet, but close. Messages she's deleted. Calls she hasn't mentioned. The foundation of trust you've built will crack. Not shatter, not yet, but crack. Third finger. In 14 days, your mother will be diagnosed with early-stage dementia. The doctors will say she's been showing signs for months, but no one noticed. You'll realize you've been so focused on your career that you haven't really talked to her in over a year. You'll have to decide whether to move closer to her or to take that job in New York. You won't be able to do both. I felt like I'd been punched. You're going to make those things happen. I'm going to tell you what's already in motion. The job offer was decided 2 days ago. Amanda's messages started 3 weeks ago. Your mother's brain has been deteriorating since last spring. I'm not creating these events. I'm just aware of them. Because I pay attention. Because I'm always watching. That's monstrous. That's reality. Bad things happen. Difficult choices have to be made. I didn't cause any of those situations. Humans created them through their own choices. Amanda chose to seek emotional intimacy elsewhere because you've been emotionally unavailable. Your mother's dementia is biology. The job offer is because you're good at what you do. I'm just telling you what's coming so you'll know I'm real when it arrives. The voices were right outside now. I could see flashlight beams playing across the walls of the hallway. I have to go. Yes, but remember this, Jake. Remember everything I've told you, because you're going to face choices soon, big ones, and you'll have to decide. Are you acting on your own genuine desires, or are you being influenced? Are the decisions yours, or are they suggestions you're accepting without realizing it? He stepped back into shadow, and suddenly it was harder to see him clearly. That's the real horror. Not that we exist, not that we whisper, but that you'll never be entirely certain which thoughts are yours. That doubt, that uncertainty, that's the gift I'm giving you tonight. Gift? Knowledge is always a gift, even when it's devastating, especially then. His voice seemed to be coming from further away now, though I hadn't seen him move. Write the story, Jake, or don't. Watch your predictions come true, or convince yourself it's all coincidence. Live with the uncertainty, or let it destroy you. The choice, as always, is yours. The teenagers burst into the room, 3 of them, maybe 16 or 17, dressed in dark clothes with backpacks and cameras. They stopped short when they saw me, surprised but not frightened. "Oh shit, sorry man," one of them said. "Didn't know anyone else was up here." I looked where the suited figure had been standing. Nothing. Just empty space and moonlight and shadows. "You okay?" another kid asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost or something." "I'm fine," I managed. "Just exploring, taking pictures." They accepted this, showing me photos they'd taken, talking excitedly about the building's history. I nodded along, gave them some advice about unstable floors, watched them move on to another room. Normal kids, normal night, normal world, except it wasn't. I left the Packard plant 20 minutes later, walking quickly back to my car, trying not to run. The streets were still empty, the houses still dark. Nothing had changed. Everything had changed. I drove back to Chicago in a daze, barely aware of the highway, of other cars, of anything outside my own spiraling thoughts. I called Tom from a rest stop outside Toledo, told him I was fine, heading home. He asked what happened, and I said nothing. Just a weird guy playing games, not worth pursuing. I lied. I lied easily, and I wondered if that came naturally or if something had made it easier. It was dawn when I reached my apartment. I sat in my car in the parking garage for almost an hour, just staring at the concrete wall, trying to process what had happened, trying to decide if any of it was real. 4 days until the first prediction. I would wait. I would watch. And I would know. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I sat in my apartment staring at my laptop screen, trying to write what had happened. Every time I started, the words felt wrong, too dramatic, too unbelievable, too insane. I'd write a paragraph, delete it, write it again differently. Nothing captured the reality of that conversation. Nothing made it sound like anything other than a fever dream or a psychotic break. Amanda called from Boston on the 2nd day. I let it go to voicemail. She called again an hour later and I picked up, forcing normalcy into my voice. "Hey, sorry, was in the shower. You sound weird. Are you okay?" "Fine. Just tired. Working on a complicated piece." "The Milwaukee interview?" "Right. The lie I'd told her." "Yeah. It's more complex than I expected." We talked for 10 minutes about nothing. Her conference, her presentation, Some drama with a colleague I didn't care about. I made appropriate sounds, asked appropriate questions, told her I loved her before hanging up. I'd lied to her again. So easily. Was that me? Or was that... I couldn't finish the thought. On the morning of the fourth day, December 7th, my phone rang. Unknown number. New York area code. I almost didn't answer. Jake Brennan? This is Victoria Castellano from The Atlantic. Do you have a few minutes to talk? My stomach dropped. Victoria Castellano, executive editor. One of the most respected names in journalism. I'd applied to work there twice years ago. Never even got an interview. Of course, I heard myself say. I'll cut right to it. We've been following your work for the past year. The pieces on extremist movements, the cult exposés. You have a talent for getting people to open up, for seeing patterns others miss. We're restructuring our investigative team and we'd like you to come on as senior editor. You'd be overseeing major features, developing long-form pieces, building out the team. It would mean relocating to New York. But the salary is $180,000 plus benefits with a significant budget for your projects. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Jake, you still there? Yes, This is unexpected. I understand it's sudden. We'd like you to come to New York next week to meet the team, see the office, discuss the details. Are you interested? First prediction, 4 days, exactly as he'd said. Can I think about it? Of course, take the weekend. But Jake, this is the kind of opportunity that doesn't come around often. We think you could do important work here, work that matters. After she hung up, I sat on my couch for 2 hours, just sat there, staring at nothing. It could be coincidence. Victoria had said they'd been following my work for a year. Maybe this had been in the works for months. Maybe the timing was just... But I didn't believe that. Couldn't believe that. He'd known. 4 days ago, he'd known this call would come, which meant the other predictions. I called Amanda. Hey, when are you back from Boston? Tomorrow afternoon. Why? What's wrong? You sound strange. Nothing's wrong. I miss you. Want to see you. I miss you too. Her voice softened. Jake, seriously, are you okay? You've been distant lately, even before I left. I'm fine, just work stress. We'll talk when you get back. Okay, I love you. I love you too. Did I? Or was that just something I said because it was expected? How much of my feelings were genuine and how much were... Stop. I couldn't think like this. Couldn't question everything. That way led to madness. I tried to work on other articles, but I couldn't focus. Every decision felt loaded. Every thought felt suspect. When I ordered dinner, I spent 20 minutes staring at the menu, wondering if my craving for Thai food was genuine, or if something had nudged me toward it. When I finally ordered, I felt ridiculous, paranoid, exactly like he'd said I would feel. Amanda came home on December 8th. I met her at the airport, hugged her, took her bags. She looked tired but happy, talking about her presentation, about the people she'd met. Normal. Everything normal. We ordered pizza that night, sat on the couch watching a movie neither of us really paid attention to. Her phone buzzed repeatedly. Text messages. She kept glancing at it, typing quick responses, putting it face down. Work stuff? I asked. Just a colleague. Questions about a project. Must be important. That's like the 6th message. It's complicated. Technical stuff about the conference. She didn't meet my eyes. Second prediction. 9 days. I felt sick. Over the next week, I watched her. Hated myself for it, but watched. She was more careful with her phone now, taking it into the bathroom, keeping it in her purse instead of leaving it on the counter. She'd angle away from me when typing. Small things, things I might not have noticed before, but I was noticing everything now. On December 12th, while she was in the shower, her laptop was open on the coffee table, email visible. I shouldn't have looked, knew I shouldn't. Did it anyway. Messages from someone named David Chen, her colleague from work, the one she'd mentioned having conference drama with. Except these messages weren't about work. They were about feelings, about connection. about how easy it was to talk to him, about how she felt seen. Nothing physical, no plans to meet outside work, but intimate, emotional, the kind of intimacy that should have been reserved for me. I closed the laptop before she came out, didn't say anything. Couldn't say anything, because how would I explain how I knew? That a demon had predicted it? That I'd snooped through her private messages because a supernatural entity had told me to watch for this? That night, lying in bed with her asleep beside me, I stared at the ceiling and wondered. Had she started this emotional affair because I'd been distant? Because I'd been lying to her, keeping secrets, pulling away? Or had something whispered to her, made it easier to seek connection elsewhere, amplified her dissatisfaction with our relationship? Was any of this real, or were we all just puppets responding to invisible strings? The job offer from The Atlantic was still sitting in my email, unopened. They wanted an answer by Monday. New York, senior editor, everything I'd worked toward, but it would mean leaving Chicago, leaving Amanda, or asking her to leave her job, her life, to follow me to a city where we knew no one. I thought about the third prediction, my mother, dementia. I hadn't called her in 3 weeks, maybe longer. We texted occasionally, her asking how I was, me giving brief responses. I'd been meaning to visit her in Madison, kept putting it off. Too busy, too focused on work. On December 14th, she called me. Unusual. She rarely called without a reason. "Jake, honey, I need to talk to you about something." "What's up, Mom?" "I saw a doctor last week, a neurologist. Your aunt noticed some things, got concerned, made me go." Her voice was steady, but I could hear the fear underneath. "They ran some tests, did some scans. They're saying it's early-stage dementia. Alzheimer's, probably, though they can't be completely certain yet." The room tilted. I sat down hard on the couch. What kind of things? What symptoms? Memory issues. I've been repeating myself a lot. Forgetting appointments. Last month I got confused at the grocery store. Couldn't remember how to get home for a few minutes. Small things, but adding up. The doctor says we caught it early, which is good. But Jake, it's going to get worse. Maybe slowly, hopefully slowly, but worse. I'll come up this weekend, we'll figure this out. I don't want to be a burden. I know you're busy with work. Mom, you're not a burden. I'll be there Saturday. After we hung up, I just sat there. 14 days. Exactly 14 days after the interview. Exactly as he'd predicted. All 3 predictions. All true. Which meant the conversation had been real. Which meant he was real. Which meant everything he'd told me about angels and demons and influence and free will was... I couldn't complete that thought either. Amanda found me like that when she got home from work. Sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. What happened? I told her about my mother. She sat beside me, took my hand, said all the right things. Supportive, caring, present. For that moment we were connected again. Partners facing something difficult together. "We'll get through this," she said. "Whatever you need, I'm here." But I'd seen the messages, knew about David Chen, knew that underneath this moment of genuine connection was a crack I couldn't unsee. "I got a job offer," I said. "The Atlantic, senior editor, in New York." She pulled back slightly. That's amazing. That's what you've always wanted." "It would mean moving, leaving Chicago." "Right." She was quiet for a moment. "When do they need to know?" "Monday. And your mom would be here, in the Midwest, needing help. Probably needing me." We sat in silence. The choice stretching out between us, career or family, New York or Madison, Amanda or my mother. Except it wasn't really Amanda anymore, was it? We were already fracturing. The job would just accelerate it. "What do you want to do?" she asked. What did I want? Or what was I being influenced to want? How could I possibly know the difference? "I don't know," I said honestly. That night I finally tried to write the article. The real story. The interview with the Prince of Demons. I wrote for 6 hours straight. Everything he'd said, every detail I could remember. It poured out of me, desperate and urgent and completely insane. I read it back the next morning. It sounded like the manifesto of someone having a breakdown. No editor would publish this. No one would believe it. I'd worked so hard to build credibility as a serious journalist, and this would destroy all of it in one piece. But I couldn't not write it. He'd been right about that too. I couldn't carry this inside me without trying to share it. I sent it to Tom with a note. I know how this sounds. I know what you're going to think. But I need you to read it. All of it. Then call me. He called an hour later. Jake, we need to talk. Are you using anything, any substances? I'm sober. Are you sleeping? Not much. Have you considered that you might be experiencing some kind of episode? That the stress of the job, the lies you've been telling Amanda, the pressure, it could manifest as, I'm not having a breakdown. This article reads like you are. You're claiming you interviewed the devil, the actual devil, in an abandoned factory. And he told you angels are real but don't help anyone, and demons just make suggestions, and we're all living in hell already. His voice was gentle but firm. Jake, this is not publishable. This is concerning. As your friend, not your editor, I think you need to talk to someone, a professional. The predictions came true, all three, exactly as he said. Job offers, relationship problems, and sick parents are not rare occurrences. You're connecting coincidences because you want to believe something meaningful happened. Because the alternative, that you drove to Detroit in the middle of the night, had a conversation with some guy in a suit who was probably just messing with you, and are now having a stress-induced crisis. That's too mundane. Too embarrassing. So you're constructing a narrative where it means something. Was he right? Was I just having a breakdown? The rational part of my brain said yes. Said this was exactly what mental illness looked like from the inside. Completely convinced of something impossible. Finding patterns in randomness. Unable to see how disturbed my thinking had become. But I'd been there. I'd felt that presence. Known things I shouldn't have known. And the predictions. I'm not crazy, I said. Then prove it. Give me something verifiable. Something that couldn't be explained away. Because right now, all I have is your word that any of this happened. And Jake, I love you, but your word isn't enough. Not for this. He was right. Of course he was right. I had no proof. No recording, no photographs, no witnesses except 3 teenagers who'd seen me standing alone in an empty room talking to myself. I have to go, I said, and hung up. That weekend, I drove to Madison to see my mother. She seemed fine at first, making coffee, asking about my life, normal conversation. But after an hour, she asked about my work again, the exact same question she'd asked when I arrived. And she didn't seem to remember we'd already discussed it. I stayed through Sunday, helping her organize medications, making notes about doctor's appointments. She cried once late Saturday night, telling me she was scared of losing herself, scared of becoming a burden, scared of the future. I held her and told her it would be okay. Lied to my mother, just like I'd lied to Amanda, just like I'd been lying to everyone. On the drive back to Chicago, I thought about the job in New York. The money was better. The prestige was better. It was objectively the right career move. But it would mean leaving my mother when she needed help. Would mean forcing Amanda to choose between her life and mine. Would mean admitting that work mattered more than people. Was that true? Did work matter more? Or was something making me believe it did? I got back to the apartment Monday morning. Amanda was making breakfast, getting ready for work. She looked up when I came in. How's your mom? Scared, but managing, for now. And the job, did you decide? I hadn't. Couldn't. Every argument made sense, every counter-argument made equal sense. I was paralyzed. I need more time. She nodded, but something in her expression shut down. Jake, I need to tell you something. About David. My heart stopped. We've been talking a lot. More than we should. Nothing physical, I swear, but emotionally, I've been sharing things with him that I should be sharing with you, and I realized I was doing it because you're not here. Not really. Even when you're physically present, you're somewhere else. You have been for months. I know. Do you? Because I don't think you do. I don't think you see how you've changed, how distant you've become, how you lie about where you're going and what you're doing. I know the Milwaukee trip was bullshit. I know something happened that you won't tell me about. And I'm tired of feeling like I'm living with a stranger. I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough. I love you, I want to be with you, but I can't keep doing this. Whatever's going on with you, whatever you're dealing with, you need to figure it out. Because this, she gestured between us, this isn't working. She left for work. I stood in the kitchen, surrounded by the smell of coffee and toast, and felt everything collapsing. He'd been right. The prince. Every prediction, every observation. I was destroying my life. Not because of demonic influence, but because of my own choices, my lies, my obsessions, my inability to be present for the people who mattered. Or was that the influence? Making me think it was my fault when really I was being manipulated. How could I know? I called Victoria Castellano. I need to decline the offer, I'm sorry. It's an incredible opportunity, but my family needs me here right now. I understand. Jake, if circumstances change, they won't. But thank you. I hung up before I could change my mind, before whatever was in my head that wanted the job could convince me I was making a mistake. Then I opened my laptop and deleted the article. All of it. Every word. Because Tom was right. I couldn't prove any of it. Publishing it would only make me look unstable, would only hurt my credibility and career, would only give people reason to dismiss me. But more than that, and this was the thought that terrified me most, what if sharing the story was exactly what he wanted? What if that was the point? To plant this seed of doubt in humanity, to make people question every decision, to spread paranoia and uncertainty like a virus. What if writing the article would serve his purposes perfectly? I couldn't know. Would never know. That was the trap. That evening, Amanda came home. We talked, really talked, for the first time in months. I told her about the pressure I'd been under, the feeling that I was never doing enough, never being enough. I didn't tell her about the interview, couldn't, but I told her about the fear, the constant second-guessing, the sense that something was wrong with me. She listened, took my hand. I think you should talk to someone, a therapist. I think you've been carrying too much alone. Maybe. Not maybe. You need help. We need help. If we're going to make this work. She was right. I knew she was right. But another part of me resisted. Pride, probably. The belief that I should be able to handle my own problems. That asking for help was weakness. Was that me, or was that... I agreed to make an appointment. Over the next few weeks, things slowly stabilized. I saw a therapist, talked about the stress, the lies, the pressure, didn't mention the interview, knew how that would sound, but talked around it, about feeling like I wasn't in control, about questioning my own thoughts. The therapist recommended medication for anxiety. I hesitated, worried that it would dull me, change who I was, but also wondering if that resistance was the influence keeping me vulnerable. I took the medication. Amanda and I started couples counseling, talked about rebuilding trust, about being present, about the emotional affair with David, which she ended, about my distance and deception, which I had to own. It was hard, painful. Some days I wasn't sure we'd make it, but we tried. I started visiting my mother every other weekend, helped her set up systems for managing her condition, connected her with support groups, watched her decline in small, heartbreaking increments, felt guilty every time I left. But I showed up, kept showing up. Work continued. I wrote articles about cults and extremism. Good work, important work. But I never mentioned the interview, never tried to write about what had happened. Sometimes, late at night, I'd wonder if any of it was real. if I'd actually talked to the Prince of Demons or if I'd had some kind of stress-induced hallucination. If the predictions were genuine foreknowledge or just good guessing based on observation, I'd never know for certain. That was the poison he'd given me. Permanent uncertainty. But here's what I realized. Months later in therapy, it didn't matter. Whether demons were literally whispering in my ear or whether my own worst impulses were doing the whispering, the result was the same. The struggle was the same. The choice was the same. Every day I faced decisions, some small, some large, and every time. And I had to ask, what kind of person do I want to be? What choice will I regret least? What action aligns with my values? Not what am I being influenced to do, but what do I choose despite influence? Because whether the influence was supernatural or psychological, external or internal, it was real, and the only defense was consciousness, awareness, the deliberate choice to pause between impulse and action, to resist. It's been 8 months since that night in Detroit. Amanda and I are still together, still working on it. My mother is still declining, still scared, still present. I'm still writing, still questioning, still trying to be better. And sometimes when I make a good decision, when I resist an impulse to lie or to take the easy path or to prioritize myself over someone I love, I wonder if I won, if I passed some small test, or if that was the plan all along, to make me better, to make me stronger, to make me more resistant, to make me worthy. I don't know, can't know. But last week something happened that I need to tell you about. I was walking to my car after a therapy appointment. It was raining, that cold December rain that feels like it's coming from every direction at once. I was thinking about nothing in particular, what to make for dinner, whether I needed to buy milk when someone stepped into my path, a man in a dark suit, mid-40s, gray at the temples. I stopped breathing. He smiled. "Hello, Jake. How have you been? You're not real. You're not. I'm as real as you want me to be. As real as you believe I am. That's the beauty of it. Your belief shapes the reality." He looked up at the rain. "You did well. Declined the job, fixed your relationship, took care of your mother. All very noble, all very human. What do you want?" "Nothing. Just checking in, making sure you remember our conversation, making sure you're still questioning, still wondering, still uncertain." He stepped closer and I smelled that same cologne, cedar and leather. Because that's the gift that keeps giving, the doubt, the perpetual second-guessing. You'll never be sure, Jake. Never know for certain which thoughts are yours. You'll live your entire life walking on a tightrope between confidence and paranoia. And that uncertainty, that's more effective than any whisper we could manage. I'm not listening to you. You're listening right now. You'll remember this conversation. You'll question it. Wonder if it was real or if you're having another episode. Wonder if you need to adjust your medication or if this actually happened. That's the trap. Every time you choose to resist, you'll wonder if the resistance was genuine or if we wanted you to resist. If we made you better on purpose. For some larger plan you can't see. Why are you telling me this? Because it's the truth. Because truth is sometimes the cruelest weapon. Because knowing how the game works doesn't actually help you play it better. It just makes you more aware of how thoroughly you're caught in it. He started to walk away, then paused. "Oh, and Jake? That article you deleted? Someone else is going to write it. Someone more credible. Someone people will believe. Your choice not to publish it. That was exactly what we needed, so thank you for that." He walked into the rain and disappeared. I stood there for 10 minutes, soaked, shaking. Then I got in my car and drove home. I didn't tell anyone, not Amanda, not my therapist, not Tom. Because what would be the point? They'd think I was relapsing, would worry, would want to adjust my treatment. Maybe I am relapsing. Maybe none of it was real. Maybe it's all just my broken brain, creating patterns, manifesting paranoia. Or maybe it's all exactly as he said. I don't know. Can't know. We'll never know. But here's what I do know. I'm telling you this story now because it needs to be told. Because other people need to understand how this works. How influence, whether demonic or psychological, supernatural or neurological, operates. How it feels from the inside. If you're reading this, you're probably wondering if you're being influenced too. If your decisions are really yours. If that impulse you're feeling right now, to dismiss this story or to believe it or to share it or to forget it, if that's coming from you or from somewhere else. And here's the most terrifying part. You'll never know for certain. Neither will I. But we still have to choose. Still have to act. Still have to take responsibility for what we do regardless of what whispers in our ear. That's free will. Not the absence of influence, but the choice to act despite it. The decision to be better even when it's harder. To resist even when you're not sure what you're resisting. Maybe that's the test. Maybe that's the point. Or maybe that's exactly what they want me to think, I don't know. But I'm trying. Every day I'm trying to be better. To choose correctly. To resist the easy path. And maybe that's all any of us can do. Whether we're being watched by angels or manipulated by demons or just struggling with our own worst impulses, maybe the answer is the same. Choose carefully, question everything, but then choose anyway, and hope it's enough. I still see him sometimes, in crowds, in reflections, standing at the end of dark streets. Or maybe I don't. Maybe it's just my imagination. Maybe it's just the doubt, doing exactly what it's meant to do. I'll never be sure, but I'll keep choosing, keep trying, keep resisting. Because whether I'm fighting demons or fighting myself, the struggle is the same, and the struggle is all we have. That's where I am now. That's where this story ends. Or maybe that's where it really begins. You decide.